If you think loyalty ends with death, wait until you hear what this K9 discovered near a veteran's cemetery in the coldest winter anyone could remember. The groundskeeper noticed him first, a shadow between the headstones at dawn, unmoving. German Shepherd, military vest still clipped around his ribs, sitting perfectly straight beside a fresh grave. Steam rose from his breath in the freezing air. The man approached slowly, boots crunching frost. The dog didn't turn, didn't blink, his eyes fixed on the name carved into granite. Sergeant Michael Chen, 1978 to 2024. 3 days passed. The dog never left. Visitors whispered about him. Some left water bowls by the cemetery fence. Others tried calling him over with food. The shepherd ignored everything. His focus remained absolute, mechanical. He was still on duty, but his body told a different story. Ribs beginning to show through dark fur. Ice crystals forming on his whiskers. A slight tremor in his hind legs that worsened each morning. On the 4th day, Animal Control received 7 calls. By the 5th, a local news van parked outside the gates. The story spread fast. Loyal K9 refuses to leave fallen handler's grave. Heartwarming, they called it. Beautiful. But nobody asked the question that mattered. What was he waiting for? The cemetery director tried everything. He contacted the veteran's family, no answer. Reached out to the K9 unit Chun had served with, transferred 3 times, left on hold. Even attempted to lure the dog away with raw steak. The shepherd's nose twitched. His stomach growled loud enough to hear from 10 feet away. But he didn't move. Just turned his head slightly, looked at the man with amber eyes that seemed impossibly old, then returned his gaze to the grave. That's when the director noticed something strange. The dog wasn't just sitting. Every few hours he'd stand, walk a precise circle around the headstone, always clockwise. Always 7 steps, then return to the exact same spot, like a ritual. Like he was guarding something, but the grave had been sealed properly. Nothing disturbed. No flowers missing, no vandalism. So what was he protecting? On the 6th night, temperature dropped to 19 degrees. The director couldn't leave him out there anymore. He called the one person who might understand. A former K9 handler named Sarah, who'd retired to a ranch 40 miles north. She arrived just after midnight, wearing a heavy coat and carrying a thermal blanket. Approached the grave slowly, speaking in low tones. "Hey soldier, I know you're working. I know you've got a mission." The dog's ears rotated toward her voice, but his body remained rigid. Sarah knelt 5 feet away, respecting the distance. She'd handled military dogs for 12 years. Knew their language. Understood that K9 South didn't retire the same way humans did. Their purpose didn't shut off like a switch. It carved itself into their bones, their instincts. Became who they were. "Whatever you're protecting," she said softly, "I promise I'll help you finish it." The shepherd's tail moved. Just once. A small, uncertain wag. That's when she saw the blood on his paw. Not much. Just a dark stain on his left front pad, half frozen. Fresh enough that it had to be from the last few hours. Sarah's stomach tightened. She scanned the area with her flashlight. No broken glass. No sharp stones. The cemetery grounds were meticulously maintained, which meant the blood came from somewhere else. She stood slowly, following the dog's line of sight. Past the headstone. Past 3 rows of graves. To the far edge of the cemetery where the fence bordered thick woods. Her light caught something, a gap in the chain link, small and low to the ground, recently made. The metal twisted outward, like something had been forced through, or dragged through. Sarah turned back to the shepherd. He was watching her now, fully alert, waiting. She understood suddenly, with cold certainty, that this dog hadn't been mourning for 6 days. He'd been standing guard. "Show me," she whispered. The shepherd stood immediately, moved toward the fence with purpose, limping slightly on that injured paw. Sarah followed, heart hammering. They reached the gap. Beyond it, darkness and trees. No path. No trail. Just wilderness that stretched for miles. The dog squeezed through the fence. Looked back at her. Waited. Sarah hesitated only a moment. Then grabbed her radio, called the director. "Get the sheriff. Tell him to bring tracking equipment and first aid. I'm going into the woods. What's happening?" "I think someone's in trouble." She clicked off before he could argue. Pushed through the fence, feeling metal scrape her jacket. The cold bit immediately. Deeper here under the trees. No moonlight. Just her flashlight beam cutting through darkness. The shepherd moved ahead, faster now, like he'd been waiting for permission. His dark form disappeared between trunks. "Wait!" Sarah jogged after him, branches catching her clothes. "Slow down, I can't." A sound stopped her. Faint. Barely there, but unmistakable. Someone crying. Not an adult. A child. Young, maybe 7 or 8 years old. The sound came from deeper in the woods, weak and scared. Sarah's blood went cold. She ran now, following the shepherd's movement through shadows. Her light bounced wildly. Trees became a blur. The crying got louder. Then she saw them. A small figure huddled against a fallen log, wrapped in a thin jacket. Boy no older than 9, shaking violently from cold. His face was tear-streaked, lips blue. The shepherd stood beside him, pressed against his side, sharing body heat. How long had they been out here? Sarah dropped to her knees, already pulling off her coat. "Hey, sweetheart, my name is Sarah. You're safe now." "What's your name?" The boy's teeth chattered too hard to answer. She wrapped him in her coat, rubbing his arms to generate warmth. Behind her, branches snapped, the director and 2 sheriff's deputies crashing through the woods. Someone handed her a thermal blanket. Another deputy called for an ambulance. Jack, the boy finally managed. "My name is Jack. Jack, you're doing great. Can you tell me what happened?" He looked at the shepherd, who sat perfectly still beside him. "I got lost. I was trying to find my way back, and it got dark and cold, and I couldn't." His voice broke. "Then he found me. He wouldn't leave. He kept me warm." Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. She looked at the dog, who watched the boy with absolute focus. "Still on duty. Still protecting. How long have you been out here, Jack?" "I don't know. A long time. Days, maybe?" 6 days. The same amount of time the shepherd had been at the grave. One of the deputies knelt beside them. "We've been searching for this kid since last Tuesday. Families from 2 towns over." He wandered away from a cemetery visit. They were visiting a relative's grave. "We searched everywhere." How the hell did he end up out here? Sarah understood then. Saw the whole story like pieces clicking into place. Jack had gotten lost near the cemetery, wandered into the woods. The shepherd, probably visiting his handler's grave, keeping that final watch, had heard him, tracked him, found him, and then faced an impossible choice. Stay with the boy who needed protection now, or return to the grave where his handler rested. So he'd done both. Kept the boy warm through freezing nights. Then returned to the grave each dawn, standing watch for hours, trying to fulfill both missions, back and forth. Never fully abandoning either, running himself into exhaustion. Injuring his paw in the process, because that's what K9 South do. They serve until they physically cannot anymore. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics loaded Jack onto a stretcher, wrapped in heated blankets. His mother appeared minutes later, sobbing, clutching her son. The reunion was raw and overwhelming. Everyone had tears in their eyes. Everyone except the shepherd, who simply sat in the snow, mission complete, waiting for his next command. Sarah approached him slowly, knelt in the cold. "You did good, soldier. You saved him." The dog leaned against her. Just slightly. The first time he'd accepted comfort in 6 days. "Come on," she whispered. "Let's get you somewhere warm." But as she stood to leave, the shepherd did something unexpected. He turned back toward the cemetery, started walking in that direction. Limping badly now, but determined. He wasn't finished yet. Sarah followed the shepherd back through the woods, her mind racing with questions. The cemetery director waited by the fence, holding a first aid kit. Deputies secured the area. News of Jack's rescue was already spreading, phones buzzing with messages, families gathering at the cemetery gates. But the dog ignored all of it, went straight to Sergeant Chun's grave. Sat in his exact spot. And finally, after 6 days of perfect posture, he allowed himself to collapse. Sarah rushed forward. "Hey, stay with me." She checked his vitals, heartbeat too fast, breathing shallow. Severe exhaustion, dehydration. That injured paw needed attention immediately. She wrapped him in her thermal blanket, brought water to his mouth. He drank slowly, carefully. Even this was a calculated action. "We need to get him to a vet," the director said. "Now, wait." Sarah noticed something beneath the shepherd's body. He'd been lying on it deliberately, keeping it hidden. A small package, wrapped in waterproof canvas, partially buried in the dirt beside the headstone. The dog watched her discover it. Didn't stop her when she carefully lifted the canvas away. Inside, a military canine handler's journal. Worn leather cover. Sergeant Chun's name embossed on the front. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened it. The first entry was dated 3 years ago. The handwriting was neat, precise. Today I met my partner. His name is Titan. He's 2 years old, already has more courage than most soldiers I've served with. They say he's difficult, unpredictable, that he washed out of 2 previous units. But I see something different in his eyes. I see a dog who cares too much, who feels too deeply. Maybe that makes us a good match. Sarah looked at the shepherd Titan. Your name is Titan. His ears perked slightly at the sound. She kept reading, flipping through pages of deployment logs, training notes, mission reports. But halfway through the journal, the entries changed. Became more personal, raw. Titan saved 3 lives today. Detected an IED before our convoy reached it. He's a hero. They'll probably give him a medal. But tonight, when we're alone, he shakes, has nightmares. I hold him and tell him he's safe. I don't know if he believes me. I'm not sure I believe it myself. Further down, Doc says my test results came back abnormal. Need more screening. I haven't told anyone yet. Titan knows though. He's been acting strange for weeks. Following me everywhere. Refusing to leave my side during downtime. Dogs always know first. Sarah's chest tightened. She skipped ahead, searching for more recent entries. Stage 3. Pancreatic. They're giving me 6 months, maybe less. I've already started the paperwork to retire Titan. He deserves a good home. A family who can give him the life he earned. But God, I don't know how to say goodbye to him. He's been my only constant through 3 deployments, 4 injuries, and more dark nights than I can count. The next entry was harder to read, the handwriting shakier. I made a decision today. When my time comes, I want to be buried in the Veterans Cemetery on Hillcrest. There's a tree there I used to sit under with Titan after we came home. We'd watch the sunset together. I felt peaceful there. Maybe I can feel peaceful again. Then, near the end, I've written letters. One for my sister, one for my K9 unit commander, and one for whoever finds this journal. If you're reading this, it means Titan led you here. It means he's still trying to serve, still trying to protect. Please don't force him to move on too quickly. He needs time to understand that his mission is over. That he can rest now. The final entry was dated 2 weeks before Chun's death. To whoever finds this, Titan isn't just a working dog. He's my brother, my family. He knows commands in 3 languages, can track through any terrain, and has saved more lives than I can count. But more than that, he knows how to love. Fiercely. Completely. Without reservation. If he's at my grave, it's because he's trying to keep one last promise. To protect me, to make sure I'm safe. Please be patient with him. Let him grieve in his own way. And when he's ready, only when he's ready, help him find a new purpose. Because dogs like Titan don't retire. They just redirect their loyalty. Thank you for caring enough to read this. Sergeant Michael Chun, United States Army. Sarah closed the journal, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Titan, who watched her with those impossibly old eyes. He knew you'd come back. He left you a message. Titan's tail moved. Just once. The veterinarian arrived 20 minutes later. Examined Titan there at the graveside, because the dog refused to move until Sarah promised out loud, clearly that she'd return. Only then did he allow himself to be loaded into the vehicle. At the clinic, the vet worked quickly. Treated the injured paw, administered fluids, ran blood panels. He's malnourished and exhausted, but he'll recover. Physically, at least. She paused. What's going to happen to him now? Sarah didn't have an answer. The K9 unit commander arrived the next morning. Captain Rodriguez, 30 years in service, gray hair and hard eyes. He stood over Titan's kennel, studying the dog who'd once been the pride of their unit. I heard about what happened. About the boy. He saved that kid's life, Sarah said. Ran himself into the ground doing it. That's Titan. He doesn't know how to do anything halfway. Rodriguez crouched down. Titan lifted his head, recognized him, but didn't rise. I got Chun's letter 3 days ago. He made me promise I'd find Titan a good placement. Somewhere he could live out his years in peace. And I have a wait list of families who want to adopt retired K9 South. Good people. Experienced handlers. But double quotes Rodriguez trailed off. But what? But Titan isn't like other retired K9 South. He needs purpose. Needs work. If we send him to a civilian family, he'll waste away. I've seen it happen before. Dogs like him, they don't know how to just be pets. Sarah looked at Titan, who was watching their conversation with sharp focus. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe retirement isn't what he needs. Maybe what he needs is a new mission. He just collapsed from exhaustion serving his last one. Because he was doing it alone. Rodriguez stood. But what if he wasn't? Sarah's pulse quickened. You want to bring him back into service? Not active duty. Something different. Something that uses his skills but doesn't break him. Rodriguez pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. There's a search and rescue program 2 counties over. They work with retired military and police K9 South. Train them for wilderness tracking, disaster response, missing persons cases. Dogs like Titan excel there because they already have the discipline, the drive, the training. Sarah studied the photo. Dogs in orange vests, handlers with GPS equipment, mountains in the background. They're always looking for experienced K9 South, Rodriguez continued. Especially ones with Titan's track record. And they need experienced handlers too. He looked at Sarah meaningfully. People who understand these dogs. Who know their language. You're offering me a job. I'm offering both of you a purpose. Sarah felt the weight of the decision. She'd retired from K9 work 3 years ago after her own partner died in the line of duty. Swore she'd never do it again. The grief had been too much, the nightmares too frequent. She'd built a quiet life on her ranch, far from the work that had defined her for so long. But standing there, looking at Titan, she felt something stir, that old sense of purpose. The knowledge that some dogs and some people weren't meant for quiet lives. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. But don't take too long. Rodriguez handed her a business card. The program starts its next training cycle in 2 weeks. He left. The clinic grew quiet except for the sound of Titan's breathing. Sarah sat beside the kennel. What do you think, soldier? You ready for a new mission? Titan stood slowly, wincing slightly on his injured paw. Walked to the kennel door. Pressed his nose against the metal grating, looking directly at her. Waiting for orders. 2 weeks later, Sarah drove a borrowed truck up a winding mountain road. Titan secured in a travel crate behind her. The search and rescue training facility appeared through morning fog. A cluster of buildings surrounded by dense forest. Obstacle courses visible in the distance, and a large training field where handlers worked with their K9 partners. The program director met them at the gate. Marcus, late 50s, former Marine, the kind of man who communicated more with silence than words. He studied Titan through the truck window. That's the K9 from the cemetery story. That's him. He looks like hell. He's been through hell, Marcus nodded. Good, that means he knows what it costs. Come on. I'll show you around. The facility housed 15 K9 teams. Some were active-duty military transitioning to search and rescue. Others were police dogs recovering from injuries. A few were civilian handlers with their own trained dogs. But all of them shared the same intensity, the same focus. Sarah felt it immediately. That familiar energy. The kind that only existed in spaces where every person and every dog understood sacrifice. We train hard here, Marcus explained as they walked past the obstacle course. Not because we want to break anyone, but because the work demands it. When we get a call, someone's life depends on us finding them fast. No second chances. No excuses. Titan watched everything from his crate, ears rotating, taking in sounds and smells, assessing. First week is evaluation, Marcus continued. We need to understand Titan's capabilities, his triggers, his limits. Then we rebuild from there. You'll train together, sleep in the same cabin, work every exercise as a team. By the end of 8 weeks, you'll either be certified for deployment or you'll know this isn't the right fit. And if it isn't, Marcus looked at her steadily. Then we find another path. But I don't think that's going to be the problem here. What is going to be the problem? He stopped walking. I read your file, Sarah. You were one of the best K9 handlers the Army had. Then your partner died and you walked away. I need to know you're not going to do that again. Because Titan doesn't need someone who's going to quit when things get hard. He needs someone who's going to stay. Sarah felt the words hit like a punch. I didn't quit. You survived, Marcus interrupted, and that's okay. But survival and service are different things. I need to know which one you're here for. She looked at Titan, who was watching her through the crate. Those amber eyes that had already seen too much loss. I'm here for him. Good. Then let's get started. The first evaluation was a basic obedience test. Commands in multiple languages, response time, focus under distraction. Titan performed flawlessly. Every command executed with military precision. Sit, stay down, heel. His movements were economical, controlled, professional. But Marcus noticed something Sarah had missed. He's not looking at you. Sarah turned. What? Watch him, Marcus pointed. He's following your commands perfectly, but he's not making eye contact. He's going through the motions, but there's no connection. He's treating you like an officer giving orders, not a partner. Sarah felt a pang of frustration. He barely knows me. Connection takes time. It does. But time isn't something we have unlimited amounts of. In the field, you need to read each other instantly. Trust each other without question. That kind of bond doesn't come from obedience alone. He was right. Sarah knew it. She'd built that kind of connection with her previous partner. Knew what it felt like when a canine trusted you completely, when communication became instinct. She didn't have that with Titan yet. How do I build it? She asked. Marcus smiled slightly. That's the right question. Come on. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Not because of the physical training, Sarah's body remembered that well enough, but because of the emotional work. Marcus designed exercises specifically to force connection. Long tracking missions where Sarah had to read Titan's body language without commands. Silent drills where they moved through obstacles using only trust. Scenarios where she had to make split-second decisions that affected both of them. And slowly, painfully, something began to shift. Titan started checking in with her during exercises. Not because he was commanded to, but because he wanted confirmation. His body language became more relaxed in her presence. He began sleeping near her bunk instead of in the far corner. Small changes, but meaningful. The breakthrough came during week 3. They were running a wilderness tracking scenario. A volunteer hid somewhere in 50 acres of forest. Titan and Sarah had 2 hours to find them. No GPS, no radios, just scent and instinct. Titan caught the trail within minutes. Moved through the trees with absolute confidence, nose to the ground. Sarah followed, watching for his signals. But 20 minutes in, Titan stopped, lifted his head, changed direction completely. Sarah's training told her to trust the dog, but her instincts were screaming that they were going the wrong way. The volunteer would never be that far off course. Titan, seek, she pointed back toward the original trail. Titan looked at her, then turned again, insistent. Sarah felt frustration rise. No, this way. The dog didn't move, just stared at her, waiting. Time was ticking down. Every moment they wasted meant failure. Sarah's mind raced. Trust the training or trust the dog. She'd seen this before A9 South, who got distracted, who followed deer trails instead of human scent. But Titan wasn't distracted. He was certain. She made a choice. Show me. Titan bolted forward immediately. Sarah ran to keep up, branches whipping her face. They crashed through dense undergrowth, moving uphill. This was nowhere near the expected search area. She'd failed the test. Marcus would be disappointed. Then she heard it, crying, faint and scared. They burst into a small clearing. The volunteer was there, but not alone. A young woman, early 20s, sat on a fallen log beside him, clutching her ankle. She looked up with tear-filled eyes. Oh, thank God. I twisted my ankle hiking this morning, got so lost. Heard your dog barking and tried to reach you, but Sarah understood. Titan hadn't abandoned the mission. He'd expanded it. Found someone who needed help more urgently than the planned scenario. Because that's what dogs like Titan did. They served whoever needed them most. Sarah knelt beside the woman, already pulling out her emergency kit. You're safe now. We've got you. She looked at Titan, who sat calmly nearby, task complete. Good boy, she whispered. I should have trusted you sooner. That night, back at the facility, Marcus found Sarah in the training yard. Titan was actually playing, for the first time since she'd met him. Chasing a ball, tail wagging, looking almost young again. You passed, Marcus said. We found the wrong person. You found someone who needed help. That's the only thing that matters. He handed her a certificate. You're both cleared for deployment. Congratulations. Sarah felt pride swell in her chest, but also fear. What happens now? Now you wait for the call. Could be tomorrow. Could be next month. But when it comes, you'll be ready. The call came 11 days later. The phone rang at 3:47 a.m. Sarah answered before the second ring, already reaching for her boots. "This is Sarah. We've got a situation." Marcus's voice was tense. 8-year-old girl missing in the Cascade Range. Wandered away from her family's campsite yesterday evening. Local search and rescue has been looking for 14 hours with no results. Temperatures dropping. They need dogs. How fast can you mobilize? 20 minutes. Make it 15. I'll have the coordinates ready. Sarah was already moving, pulling on her field gear. Titan stood by the door, fully alert. He knew what the pre-dawn scramble meant. She clipped his search vest on bright orange with reflective strips and checked her pack. GPS, first aid, emergency blanket, flares, water for both of them. They were in the truck 14 minutes later. The drive took 2 hours through winding mountain roads. Dawn broke cold and gray. Sarah's mind ran through scenarios. Hypothermia risk, terrain hazards, wildlife. A child that age could cover surprising distance if panicked, but probably not if injured. The command post was a cluster of emergency vehicles at a trailhead parking lot. Sheriff's deputies, forest rangers, volunteer search teams. Everyone looked exhausted. The girl's parents stood near an ambulance, the mother wrapped in a blanket, the father pacing frantically. Marcus met Sarah and Titan at the perimeter. Girl's name is Emma. She's 8, wearing a pink jacket, last seen near the campsite around 7 p.m. yesterday. Father says she wandered off chasing a rabbit. They realized she was gone 30 minutes later. Local teams have covered a 3-mile radius with no contact. What about dogs? 2 bloodhounds ran for 6 hours but lost the trail at a creek. That's where we're starting. Sarah looked at Titan, who was scanning the area with professional focus. Ready to work? His tail moved once. Affirmative. They hiked to the creek. Sarah studied the area, fast-moving water, rocky banks, dense forest on both sides. A child Emma's age would struggle to cross here. So either she'd turned back or she'd gone along the creek bed, but which direction? Titan seek. The dog moved immediately, nose to the ground, worked both directions methodically. The bloodhounds had lost the trail, but bloodhounds tracked low ground-level scent. German shepherds could track air scent too, catch molecules carried on wind. Different strategy. Titan paused 20 feet downstream, lifted his head, caught something. "You've got it?" He moved forward. Not running tracking took patience but purposeful. Following an invisible trail only his nose understood. Sarah stayed close, reading his body language. Ears forward meant strong scent. Tail parallel meant concentration. Any deviation from that would signal distraction or loss of trail. They moved along the creek for 40 minutes. The terrain grew rougher. Boulders and fallen trees made footing treacherous. Sarah's radio crackled periodically with updates from other teams. No sign, no contact, but Titan never wavered. Then he stopped. Looked across the creek to the opposite bank. Changed his body language completely, ears pinned back, stance lowered, alert, concerned. Sarah felt her heart rate spike. What is it? Titan whined, pawed at the ground. Across the creek, partially hidden by overgrowth, Sarah spotted something pink. "Command, this is Sarah. I've got a visual on what might be the subject. Stand by." She waded into the creek. The water was shockingly cold, moving fast enough to knock her off balance. Titan followed without hesitation. They scrambled up the opposite bank. Sarah pushed through brush. Emma lay curled against a tree trunk, unconscious, lips blue from cold. Her pink jacket was torn. Scratches covered her exposed skin. But she was breathing. "Command, I've got her. She's alive." Coordinates. Sarah rattled off their position while already wrapping Emma in the emergency blanket, checking for injuries. Hypothermia, exhaustion, dehydration, but no major trauma. Titan pressed close to Emma's other side, sharing body heat. "Good boy," Sarah whispered fiercely. "Good boy." The extraction took an hour. Paramedics stabilized Emma on site before the difficult hike back to the command post. Her parents broke down sobbing when they saw her. The mother couldn't stop thanking Sarah, clutching her hands, repeating "thank you" like a prayer. But Sarah redirected every word to Titan. He found her. Not me. Marcus pulled her aside as the ambulance left. "Hell of a first mission. How long until the next one?" He smiled. "Let's get some food in you first." That night, back at the facility, Sarah sat in her cabin with Titan sprawled beside her bunk. She thought about Sergeant Chen's journal, about the letters he'd written, about his faith that Titan would find a new purpose. "I think we're doing okay," she told the dog quietly. "I think he'd be proud." Titan's tail thumped against the floor. The missions came steadily after that. Not all of them had happy endings. In July, they searched for a missing hiker and found him 3 days too late. In September, they tracked a lost Alzheimer's patient through a suburban neighborhood at night, found her safe but disoriented. In November, they deployed to a building collapse after an earthquake, searching for survivors in unstable rubble. Each mission changed them, strengthened their bond. Sarah learned to read Titan's smallest signals. He learned to trust her decisions even when they seemed to contradict his instincts. They became what all great K9 teams become, two parts of one entity. But the mission that mattered most came in late December. The call came on Christmas Eve. Sarah was at the facility she'd volunteered to stay on duty, so other handlers could be with their families. Titan slept by the fireplace in the common room, contentedly exhausted from a training run that morning. "We've got a critical situation," Marcus's voice was grave. "Multiple missing persons. Group of teenagers went hiking in the Pemberton Valley yesterday afternoon. Supposed to be back by dinner. Never returned. Cell phones dead. No emergency beacon. Families are frantic. How many? 5 kids. Ages 15 to 17. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Teenagers were different from children. Old enough to panic, young enough to make fatal mistakes. And in the Pemberton Valley, one of the most treacherous wilderness areas in the region, mistakes killed fast. Weather? Snow moving in. Heavy. We've got maybe 6 hours before visibility drops to nothing. I'm mobilizing now." She woke Titan gently. His eyes opened immediately. Read her face, and he was on his feet before she finished speaking. They were in the truck 3 minutes later. The drive was tense. Snow already falling, roads slick. Sarah's mind worked through scenarios. 5 teenagers. How long had they been missing? 20 hours. Plenty of time to get seriously lost in terrain like Pemberton. And if the snow hit before they found them, she pushed the thought away. Focus on what you can control. The command post was chaos. 3 different agencies, overlapping jurisdictions, too many people with opinions. The teenagers' families had driven up from the city, looked completely out of their element. One mother was sobbing. A father was shouting at a ranger about inadequate signage. Sarah found Marcus arguing with the incident commander. "Don't care what your protocol says, we need dogs on the ground now. And I'm telling you the risk is too high. If this snow hits and those kids are still out there, they're dead," Marcus said flatly. "So we either go now or we go to 5 funerals next week." The commander's jaw tightened. Then he nodded. "Fine, but I want constant radio contact. First sign of weather turning, you extract immediately. Deal." Sarah and Titan weren't alone. Marcus had called in 2 other teams. Jackson and his Belgian Malinois, Kira. Chum no relation to Sergeant Chen and his Dutch Shepherd Atlas. 3 teams, 3 different search vectors. They started at the trailhead where the teenager's car was parked. Sarah studied the map. Pemberton Valley had dozens of branching trails, steep cliffs, dense forest. Easy to get lost if you didn't know what you were doing. Titan seek. He caught a trail immediately. Young people, multiple scents, recent. Moved up the main path with confidence. Sarah followed, keeping pace. The snow was falling harder now, muffling sound. Temperature dropping. 2 miles in, Titan stopped. The trail forked. He worked both directions, confused. The scents had split here. Sarah's radio crackled. "Jackson here." Atlas found clothing. Looks like they tried to mark their route, but the wind scattered everything. Which direction? East Fork. We're pursuing. Sarah looked at the West Fork. Titan and I will take west. Chan, you stay on main trail in case they backtracked. Copy. They pushed into the West Fork. The terrain grew brutal steep inclines, loose rocks, narrow paths with sheer drops. Exactly the kind of place where panicked teenagers made fatal decisions. Sarah's anxiety spiked. How far would kids go before realizing they were hopelessly lost? Titan paused again. Lifted his head, changed direction completely, leaving the trail. "You sure?" He moved into dense undergrowth. No path, just wilderness. Sarah hesitated only a moment before following. She'd learned to trust him absolutely. They crashed through brush for 20 minutes. Snow thick enough now that visibility was maybe 30 feet. Sarah's radio crackled with static signal weakening this deep in the valley. She marked their position on GPS, left breadcrumb waypoints every 100 yards. Getting lost herself would help no one. Titan suddenly stopped, barked. Sharp, urgent. Alert bark. Sarah's pulse hammered. What have you got? He barked again, moved forward 10 feet. Stopped at the edge of what looked like solid ground, but was actually a snow-covered depression. A ravine, maybe 12 feet deep, hidden by accumulated powder. And at the bottom, 3 teenagers huddled together. 2 boys and a girl, wrapped around each other for warmth. Command, this is Sarah. I've got 3 subjects. They're alive. Coordinates. She read off the GPS numbers while already assessing how to reach them. The ravine walls were steep but manageable. I'm going down. She secured a line to a tree, rappelled carefully. The teenagers looked up with glazed, hypothermic eyes. The girl's lips were blue. One boy couldn't stop shaking. The other seemed barely conscious. My name is Sarah. I'm search and rescue. You're safe now. She was already pulling emergency blankets from her pack, wrapping them, checking for injuries. How many were in your group? 5. The girl managed through chattering teeth. Tyler and Madison. They went for help. Hours ago. They didn't come back. Sarah's stomach clenched. 2 more still missing. And the snow was getting worse. She radioed for extraction coordinates, then looked at Titan, who waited at the ravine's edge. I need you to keep searching. Can you do that? The dog's ears rotated forward. Ready. Seek. Find them. Titan disappeared into the snow. Sarah stayed with the 3 teenagers, keeping them warm. Keeping them talking, fighting unconsciousness was critical with hypothermia. 20 minutes later, she heard voices. Jackson and Kira appeared through the trees with a medical team. Paramedics took over, began the careful process of warming the kids, preparing them for transport. Where's Titan? Jackson asked. Still out there. 2 more missing. His expression darkened. Sarah, the weather. I know, her radio crackled. Marcus's voice, tense. All teams, we're at critical threshold. Snow's too heavy. I'm calling extraction in 30 minutes. If you haven't found them by then, understood. Sarah clicked off. Looked at the forest where Titan had vanished. In this weather, it wasn't enough time. But it was all they had. She left the teenagers with the medical team and pushed back into the wilderness. Titan! Her voice barely carried through the snow. Titan! No response. 15 minutes passed. 20. Sarah's internal clock screamed at her. She should turn back. Protocol demanded it. But the thought of those 2 kids out here, alone, dying in the cold. A bark. Distant. Muffled by snow, but unmistakable. Sarah ran toward the sound, slipping on ice, branches tearing at her jacket. She found Titan standing at the base of a massive fallen tree. He was barking continuously now, urgent, desperate. Behind the tree, a small hollow formed by the root system. And inside, 2 teenagers, barely conscious, hypothermia advanced. The girl Madison had her arms wrapped around the boy Tyler, trying to share body heat. They weren't shaking anymore. Bad sign. Final stage before the body gave up entirely. I've got them, Sarah shouted into her radio, already moving. But they're critical. I need immediate airlift. She worked fast. Emergency blankets. Chemical heat packs. Forcing them to stay awake, to keep talking. Titan pressed against Tyler's side, sharing his body heat. The helicopter arrived 12 minutes later. Paramedics descended on lines. The extraction was chaotic, fighting wind, fighting time, fighting the cold that was trying to claim 2 more lives. But they got the kids secured. Got them loaded. Sarah grabbed the last line. Titan, come! The dog looked at her, then looked back at the forest. Didn't move. Titan now. The helicopter couldn't wait. The weather was too dangerous. He barked once. Not at her. At something deeper in the trees. Sarah felt ice in her veins. There's no one else. All 5 are accounted for. But Titan wouldn't move. Stared into the forest with absolute certainty. The pilot's voice crackled in her headset. We have to go! Now. Sarah made a choice that contradicted every piece of training, every safety protocol. Go without me. What? Take the kids. I'm staying. Sarah. She disconnected her line. Stepped back. The helicopter lifted into the white chaos, disappeared. And suddenly, the forest was terrifyingly quiet. Just Sarah and Titan and the snow. "This better be worth it," she whispered. "Show me." Titan moved immediately. Deeper into the valley. Sarah followed, trusting completely. 5 minutes. 10, 15. She was completely lost now. GPS barely functioning through the storm. Then Titan stopped at another ravine. Larger than the first. And at the bottom, a man. Older, maybe 60, wearing a ranger uniform. Unconscious. Blood on his forehead. Sarah's breath caught. She scrambled down. Checked his pulse weak but present. His ranger ID read Robert Martinez. She grabbed her radio, but it was dead. Too much interference. She was on her own. Sarah assessed quickly. Head injury, likely concussion, possible hypothermia. She couldn't carry him out alone. Couldn't leave him to get help. She needed. Titan barked, sharp, insistent. Sarah looked up. The dog was staring at her with those amber eyes. Waiting. She understood suddenly what he was asking, what he'd been trained for since the beginning. "Go get help, find Marcus. Bring them here." Titan took off like a bullet. Sarah wrapped Martinez in her own coat, used her last heat packs, kept pressure on his head wound. Talked to him even though he couldn't respond. "Hang on, help's coming. Just hang on." Time became meaningless. Could have been 20 minutes. Could have been 2 hours. The cold was a living thing now, trying to pull her under. Her hands were numb, her thoughts slowing. Then, voices. Lights. Marcus appeared through the snow with a full rescue team. "Jesus Christ, Sarah." The ranger, she managed. "He needs." Medical team swarmed Martinez. Someone wrapped Sarah in a blanket, forced hot liquid down her throat. Titan pressed against her side. Mission complete. Marcus crouched beside them. The ranger's been missing for 3 days. Fell during a solo patrol. "We thought he was dead." Titan knew, Sarah whispered. "He knew someone else was out here. You almost died staying behind. But we didn't." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then Chun would be proud. "Both of you." 3 months later, Sarah stood at the Veterans Cemetery on a cold but clear morning. She'd visited every week since that December mission. Not to mourn anymore, to remember, to honor. Titan sat beside Sergeant Chun's grave. Not in that rigid, desperate vigil from before. Just sitting, peaceful. Sarah knelt beside him. "We did it. We found our purpose." She placed a small memorial stone beside the headstone. It read, "In memory of Sergeant Michael Chun and his partner, K9 Titan. They taught us that service never ends, it only transforms." Behind them, a car pulled up. The teenagers they'd rescued got out, healthy and whole. Madison approached first, shy but determined. "We wanted to say thank you again. For saving our lives." "Titan saved your lives," Sarah corrected gently. "I just followed him." Tyler knelt beside the dog, scratched behind his ears. "Our families want to start a fund for search and rescue K9 programs. In honor of Titan and Sergeant Chun." Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. That would mean everything. The teenagers stayed for an hour, talking, laughing, alive. When they finally left, Sarah and Titan remained alone at the grave. "You ready to go home?" she asked. Titan stood, looked at the headstone one last time, then turned toward Sarah, toward the future. They walked together through the cemetery gates. Behind them, the morning sun broke through clouds, casting long shadows across granite and grass. The stone markers stood silent, witnesses to sacrifice, guardians of memory. But Sarah and Titan didn't look back, because they both understood now what Sergeant Chen had known all along. Loyalty doesn't end with death. It doesn't fade with time. It transforms, evolves, finds new ways to serve, new lives to save, new purposes to fulfill. That night, Titan didn't save just a life. He saved hope, and that was the mission that mattered most.